Environmental racism can be defined as the permanent placement of low-income or minority populations in heavily polluted areas. No place on Earth better illustrates the effects of environmental racism than Guiyu, a town and primitive e-waste processing center in China. People here are subjected to toxins in the air they breathe, water they drink, and food they eat, which ultimately leads to tons of negative health effects. But there's still hope for future generations. Environmental and social activists have been working to improve the living conditions for Guiyu's population, and to a degree of success. Guiyu first received international recognition in 2001 when an environmental nonprofit called Basel Action Network published a documentary that followed the path of e-waste after it had been shipped internationally. Guiyu received further recognition for its e-waste problem in 2008 when 60 Minutes featured the town in an episode where e-waste managers attempted to confiscate the film crew's footage to prevent widespread knowledge of the e-waste problem. Meanwhile, local activists such as 35-year-old Xu Li have been working with the government to reform the city's e-waste recycling process. While working conditions in Guiyu are still insanely dismal, there has been improvement. Local activism and international recognition of the issue has created momentum which has led to the implementation of new laws made to protect the local population. For example, Zhang Songmin, the head of Guiyu's township, implemented a decree that forbids the use of fire while stripping electronics, which citizens say have actually noticeably increased the air quality.
Countries in the global north, such as the United States, the UK, and Australia, have not only targeted developing countries like China and India to use as their electronic waste destinations, but investigation into e-waste disposal has revealed that illegal shipments of used electronics have also been flowing into the West African country of Ghana for many years. Accra, the capital of Ghana, is the location of an enormous and heavily polluted electronic waste dump site, Agbugbosh, a suburb in Accra. The poorest classes, especially boys as young as 5 years old, come to the dump site to manually dismantle and break open the electronic waste to extract copper, aluminum, and other materials for resale. They are forced to practice unsafe methods of waste processing, especially burning, that have detrimental repercussions. The pollution of air and food sold in nearby markets, exposure to toxic components of metals that affect the development of use, as well as an accumulation of unhealthy levels of lead in their bodies. An NGO known as Blacksmith Institute, now known as Pure Earth, teamed up with Green Ad Ghana, a local organization, and began a new project in January of 2014 that involved setting up a basic e-waste recycling facility that would enable recyclers to stop burning wire and mitigate the toxic pollution. The new facility was officially launched on October 9, 2014 by both organizations and also in collaboration with Greater Accra Scrap Dealers Association.
Flint, Michigan was declared in a financial state of emergency as of 2011 because many of its residents were being exposed to toxins. The government officials switched Flint's water source from the Detroit water system to the Flint River system, which is filled with lead toxins, releasing extreme levels of heavy metal in the water, which the government expects the residents to consider as safe drinking water. Flint is a city composed of low-income individuals, hence many believe this water crisis was not an accident. It was a form of environmental racism, because till this day, Flint, Michigan does not have clean running drinking water. Residents are expected to use water bottles to hydrate, shower, etc. What if the city was filled with upper-class individuals? The government would have already fixed the issue right away, don't you think? Additionally, Flint's water crisis is causing many health problems to local residents, especially children. According to the USA Today census, there have been reports of more than 8,000 children being exposed to lead poisoning from drinking water, and that number is increasing since the first report of contamination. And as we all know, lead poisoning is irreversible and these children will have lifelong consequences. Residents have been doing everything they can to raise awareness and stop such injustices. There have been 3 lawsuits filed against Governor Snyder, including a federal lawsuit and 2 class action suits. Many residents also have signed online petitions demanding to end the usage of the water Flint system and switch back to the original Detroit water system.
Pig farms in North Carolina have led to increased health problems and contamination to residents that live by these farms for decades. Duplin County, North Carolina, in which almost a quarter of the population lives below the poverty line, is home to one of the biggest hog-producing farms with 530 hog operations and over 2 million pigs. These pig farms have been placed in predominantly Black, Latino, Native American poor communities. These hog operations get rid of their hog waste by dumping it into a nearby lagoon, which feeds into nearby rivers and streams, which contaminates the water supply. This waste undergoes no treatment. Because of this, hog-related fecal bacteria can lead to hepatitis, typhoid, dysentery, impaired memory function, higher asthma rates in children, and high blood pressure. Residents complain that the odor from the pig feces causes breathing problems and forces them to become prisoner in their own home to avoid the stench. Activists have reached out to their state government, the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, and it actually wrote against its residents and stated that the contamination from these farms are not a human health issue. Organizations such as the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network and the Waterkeeper Alliance have filed a civil rights complaint against the state agency stating that the hog lagoons has an unjustified disproportionate impact on the basis of race and national origin against African Americans, Latinos, and Native Americans. Groups and communities call on EPA to move forward with the investigation and enforce Civil Rights Act. The fact that this environmental racism has affected poor people of color communities is not something that should remain silent. Everyone should have access to clean air and clean water regardless of location. Your race and class should not be a death sentence.
The Bhopal disaster motivated a unique type of climate justice activism which had a mixture of successes and failures. On December 3, 1984, the Union Carbide pesticide plant carelessly allowed water to flow into a methyl isocyanate tank, causing a chemical reaction that resulted in 45 tons of gas to leak into the surrounding area. It's estimated that around 3,500 people were killed in nearby slums, immediately affected by a fluid in their lungs, blood foaming from their mouths, and burning eyes. Long-term effects have left around 25,000 people with fertility and production issues, respiratory system problems, birth defects, and cancerous tumours, with little or no justice for their suffering. In 2004, an activist duo called the Yes Men impersonated a representative from the company that owned Union Carbide. He accepted full responsibility for the disaster and offered compensation to all victims on a live BBC interview. This hoax had a mixture of responses, with some victims' hopes being dashed. However, the group did create an awareness of the disaster and the company experienced major backlash. For over 30 years, the brave victims of the disaster carried out a social justice campaign which finally resulted in civil and criminal case against those responsible in 2014. Some have argued, however, that this was too little too late.
In all of these situations, social action has served to raise the public's awareness of social disparities as they relate to environmental mismanagement. Even though there's still a long ways to go in terms of attaining true worldwide equality, the first step to solving the issue is admitting there's a problem in the first place.